Hey everyone, so I'm back in the potato garden. If you watched my last video, you know that I am looking to transition to raised beds in my potato patch. And as you could see, I have two here set up. I have three. That old one that's overgrown is not being used by me. I need to figure out what to do with that. That one came with the house. But in any case, I've added two here. The one back there I've filled with various materials, and it will be ready to plant come springtime. And this next one we're going to fill it together. And I'm going to show you how I will fill this bed without spending any money. I'm just going to use materials that I have on hand and around on the property. And the idea here is to hopefully give you some ideas on how you could fill a raised bed, without spending a ton of money. If you go and buy soil to fill this thing with, it's going to cost a fortune, and who knows the quality of the soil in there. The way that we're going to do it today is going to really start me off well for the next growing season, and it is going to cost me very little. And just the way that I do it might not be the way that you are able to do it, just because we might have different materials to work with. We might have access to different things, but I hope that it gives you some food for thought and gives you some ideas if you are looking to fill a raised bed. Here, the very first thing I've added to this bed is cardboard. I think most of us have a pretty steady stream of packages coming to our houses these days. We all kind of have a lot of cardboard. I know I do. So this is really a great kind of waste product that I could utilize in my garden. What this is going to do is make a bit of a makeshift weed barrier on the bottom of this bed, so a lot of the weeds below this layer of cardboard won't come through. If I had more cardboard, I would actually put some more here. As you can see, there are some bare patches, but I'm trying to save it because I plan on building some more beds here. So I'm kind of rationing my cardboard right now. But if you're a gardener and you don't save your cardboard, I suggest you do. Very useful in the garden. So yeah, this is going to be my very first layer in the raised bed. All right, so the next thing I've gone ahead and added to this bed is what I call my wood layer. So these are all branches from little trees and shrubs from around the property. There's a lot of pieces of wood from when I had firewood delivered, and I had a lot of small pieces that were too small to stack. Those have been around in a pile for a while, and they've actually started decomposing, which is amazing. But essentially for this layer, you're just going to go look for wood that you can use in here. There's just one thing to keep in mind with this, is that you don't want the level of wood to rise. You don't want it to be too high up in your garden bed. Reason being is that as the wood decomposes, it actually uses up nitrogen, which is what your garden plants also need to grow. So if you have too much wood in the bed, that first year or so, while the wood is decomposing, your plants aren't going to do as well because they're competing with the decaying wood for nitrogen. So that's why I have a relatively thin layer of woody material towards the bottom. That will be good enough for this bed. And now let me show you the next thing that I add to this bed. Next thing I've gone and added here is compost. Probably the best thing you could put in a garden bed. If you have enough compost to fill the whole thing up, you should go ahead and do that. Most of us are not that lucky. This is just about all the compost I have left, and this will be a really nice to have down a little deeper towards the roots, and a nice little barrier between our woody layer. And from here, I don't have that much more non-soil material to add. So my second to the top layer is going to be the dirt that I dug out of where this raised bed now is to make room for it. That's really going to be my growing medium. That's the dirt that the potatoes grew in this year. But ideally, I would have some more material here to raise the bed up a little higher. So I think I'm just going to start adding the soil, see how high it gets me, and go from there. If you have access to a lot of fallen leaves, let's say you're doing this in the fall, you should use those. I actually did that in that bed. I had a bag of some leaves that I raked up last year, and I've been saving it, and I dumped it in there. That filled up a lot of space, and that'll create some great soil once it decomposes. But here I am going to start adding soil and see where that leaves me. Well, that was a lot of digging, but I think I'm at a good level here. Yeah, so what I did was just kind of dug around in the soil that was around the garden bed that made up the old potato patch, and just dumped that in there. It's well, it's less than ideal because obviously there were a lot of weeds in that soil. There's weed seeds now in this garden bed. That's something I am aware of, but with it being contained in this bed, I'm hoping that with some diligent weeding in the beginning, I will stay on top of it and be able to keep it from getting out of control like it did in that last video that you saw, where there was it was hardly possible to see the potatoes in the potato patch. There were so many weeds. But so that's that. There's some space where I could add some more soil here, but considering there's no real bottom here other than the cardboard, which will decompose over time, I'm not really worried about that. If I had like hardware cloth or some kind of landscape fabric on the bottom of this bed, maybe I'd put some more soil in. But now we're almost done. I am just going to add one more thing, which, looking at that other bed, you could probably tell what it is. All right, and the last thing for this bed is the mulch layer. In this case, it is straw. It's like this straw that I have in a compressed bale. This is the only thing that really costs money that I used today, but I already had this on hand. So I know it's upside down and you probably can't read, but it's like cut up straw that's meant for animal bedding. So I already had that on hand. Then I used that. Probably a normal bale of straw would be better because the stuff's so fine. So if you have that, or you can get that, that's probably way better to use. But yeah, mulch, very important. You really should never leave your soil bare. Mulch helps protect the soil from the sun, from UV rays from the sun. It helps protect it from the cold. Just keeps the microbiomes that give your soil life, keeps them protected. So definitely always use mulch. And the type of mulch, there's all sorts of kinds that you use. The mulch is a whole rabbit hole that people who are a lot smarter than me on the subject have gone into depth on YouTube. So I would seek that information out if you're interested in learning more about mulch. But that pretty much concludes what I have going on for this raised bed. I'm going to just keep an eye on it, and as weeds come up, I'm going to pick them. And if more mulch is necessary, if it decomposes, I'll add some more in. And then once spring rolls around, I'll get to planting. My hope is, since it's August now, by the time we start planting, it's like April, late April, early May. So by that time, I'm hoping a lot of decomposition will have occurred with the wood, the cardboard, the leaves in that bed. So come next year's growing season, I'm hoping to get a lot of potatoes out of these two beds. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and stay tuned for more.